Sometimes people are afraid to go to therapy because they know once they go, they will have to address their pain, feel their emotions, and fall apart in front of someone. And sometimes we are not ready for that or need more time, and that's okay too. Hello and welcome to another brand new episode of the Toy Talks podcast. My name is, of course, Ms Toy Washington, and each and every Tuesday I bring you a new episode of the Toy Talks podcast. I want to welcome our avid listeners and followers of the Toy Talks podcast and the Toy Talks platform, and I'd also like to welcome all our new listeners as well. As I always say, please acquaint yourself with some of the previous podcast episodes that we have recorded, because this is a journey, honey, and you can join this journey at any time, but you just have to commit to be yourself, commit to be honest, and stand and walk in your truth. Whew. It is literally galloping to the end of the year, and I'm realizing that I think it's after next week, it's December. And I still remember in March when we went down but we did, isn't it? The first lockdown in the UK. So yeah, it's a lot. There are a couple of things. First of all, we're calling this episode Kiss of Death, and I will go into a lot of detail. This is going to be a very interesting packed podcast episode. But there are so many things that happened last week. A couple of things I am going to touch on, and others I'm going to deep dive next week in next week's episode. But I wanted to share something with you guys quickly because, I'm all about telling my truth and saying it how it is, because I'm not perfect, And one thing I will always say is, well, I own up to my bullshit. That's on everything. I own up to my shit because I'm not a perfect human being. I'm not trying to be. I don't aspire to be. I just aspire to learn, grow, and continue to walk in my purpose, doing the Lord's work, honey. So last week, or was it the week before, I was really pissed. And I'm just going to explain the reason why. And those who know. And if you don't understand it, then fair enough. So obviously you guys know I've been doing this podcast for, it's almost a year. So a year, 1st of January 2021 will be a year. And I have seen amazing download numbers. I see my platform grow. I have a lot of interaction. Of course, I've got the website as well, and the masterclasses on there too. And also as well, like in terms of me and kind of being a quote unquote public figure, I think I'm a public figure. What do you think? I have, I'd say since, 2012, 2013, like I've been on a journey, okay? And I say 2013, 2012 because that is probably poignant periods in my life when I realized that I had a purpose upon my life, and I was basically walking in the wilderness for a long time to get to where I am now. I've had so many experiences. I've been through a lot. I've experienced a lot. And when I sit here and think about my age, I think to myself, bloody hell, I need to write autobiography. Soon coming in. So people know who I am, or you've heard of me, or you've heard of the platform. Not everybody knows who I am. God, like, I'm not that well known. My name ain't Kim Kardashian, do you know what I mean? But I think what pissed me off was, so I get messages from people all the time, okay? And I have people reach out. I do get invited to certain things, which I choose to decline certain things, especially if I feel like there's not synergy to what I'm trying to do on my platform. There needs to be some synergy, some alignment, some consistency. And for me as well, like I've created a brand that I'm proud of. So for me, I have to make sure that anything I associate my brand with, it's able to be attainable and understood by my audience. That's really important for me. So yeah, I get asked and I turn a lot of things down, especially because I know what is not healthy for me and what is not good for the brand. And also, you have to be careful about your energy and protecting your energy. And I speak about that all the time. Anyway, I digress. So I remember, I think it was last year, a couple of people reached out to me and they were like, oh, I love what you're doing. I follow the podcast. I follow the brand. I get it. It's amazing. I'm always taking notes. I couldn't come to your first Toy Talks live event. This, that, and the third. Now, when people say things like that to me, I'm always very polite. And then I saw a couple of these people who had reached out and said those things to me. They then did something on social media and were discussing kind of platforms that are known to support and encourage growth within the black community, especially black women, in terms of career, education, and things like that. And I became aware of this when I was tagged by one of my Toya Talks listeners, subscribers, because my platform was not mentioned. And I've got to be honest, it made me feel away. It made me feel away because of this reason. Don't give me your fake shit. I didn't ask for your fake shit. I feel like if you're going to be, like, if you're going to front, do it all the way. Don't engage me to try and pacify your guilty conscience because you know you're on bullshit. And it really got on my nerves, and it really irritated me. It did, because I just thought to myself, why is it that people can't just be honest with themselves? Do you understand? Like, I don't go looking, I don't go asking, I mind my fucking business, stay in my blood clot lane. So then when you come to disturb me while I'm in my lane so that I can acknowledge you, i.e. you wanted me to pacify something. And I knew it anyway because it just didn't seem sincere. It felt very disingenuous. So then obviously you guys are the real MVPs round here. The real MVPs, baby. Because whenever there is people ask about podcasts or platform that advises black women in the world of work, you guys always show up and show out. You guys talk about me in rooms that I'm not in. I've done a lot of stuff this year with organizations and businesses purely on the back of people who really engage with the platform, people who listen to the platform and genuinely support. You guys have been introducing me to your companies. You guys have been putting my platform on. You guys have been making sure that I'm getting paid, like literally paid to go into organizations and educate the small-minded, sometimes racially motivated white people about our experiences as black women in the world of work and what can be done to help us navigate the world of work. You guys make sure that I'm put in front of these people. And I really felt irritated, like I said. And I don't often feel that way, but this really annoyed me. And I just think it was just because it felt like shade, and it felt like unprovoked shade, if you want me to be real. And when I felt like that, a young lady reached out to me just out of the blue, and she says, Toya, you have sown so many seeds into my life. You've transformed my career, basically. And therefore, I would like to sow seeds into another woman's life. In fact, Toya, I don't want to do it for one woman. I want to do it for two. And I'd like to purchase 2 of your masterclasses for you to gift. So that I can sow seeds into other women's life by sharing your platform and giving women who may not be in a financial place to afford or be able to attain some of those masterclasses. I want to give them that opportunity. Do you know I felt so emotional that day because I felt like, because I was so irritated in the morning, I felt like God was reminding me that, Toya, don't worry about the distraction of people's emotion in trying to throw you off track or trying to have you focus on them. What you have is something very, very special. And what you need to do, Toya, you need to focus on that, because there's women that need you. There's women that need you to continue to deliver and produce the content on this podcast, because you're changing lives. And with that followed a couple of more emails and messages from women all over the world, different women, at least 4 women all over the world, who had reached out to me and basically just shared with me how I've transformed their career. Unprovoked. And it was like I was speaking my frustration into the universe, and the universe was reminding me that I'm walking in my purpose. And sometimes when you walk in your purpose, people see that bright light of grace, and they're either encouraging you, speaking life into you, or they're throwing shade and to highlight and it highlights their own insecurity. I say this also to say, even today I got an email from a young lady. She says, Toya, thank you for everything you have done to support me in my career, and I am on my 3rd promotion, and it's because of your platform. It's because of what you have sown into the world, and I'd like to sponsor a masterclass. I'd like to sponsor a masterclass for a young lady who may not be in a financial position to afford it. I'd like to sponsor one. I'd like to pay for one for you to give out. So that's 3 masterclasses. And I was just overwhelmed with joy. And I realized at that point, any irritation or frustration I was feeling because of the subliminal shade, to be honest with you, I don't actually give a fuck, because I'm on a bigger, greater purpose. And my purpose, I'm so busy in walking in that purpose, I ain't got time to receive the shade. Maybe I had a bit of time that day. Maybe I was coming on my period. I don't know. But I wanted to share that with you guys because I was a bit frustrated. And I think I have to make sure that I give you guys balance as well, because it's not always sweetness and light. Sometimes I get irritated, sometimes I get stressed, sometimes I've got menstrual cycle pain, sometimes my period pains take me out as if I've offended somebody in a past life. So I wanted to quickly share that with you guys. So this episode is called Kiss of Death. I don't know how many of you grew up watching Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, The Cosby Show, Mr. Cooper. Oh God, I'm really trying to tell my age here. So last week was the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reunion of 25 years. And I grew up watching Desmond's, The Real McCoy, Mr. Cooper, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I really loved watching those type of programs because I was born and raised in Tottenham. And I was going to school with people who looked like me, but the teachers didn't look like me. The teachers couldn't relate to us as majority black children. So we would then go home and we'd put the TV on, and you don't ever see anybody that looks like you unless you watch BBC 2 or BBC 4 at a certain Channel 4 at a certain time. And I would literally be immersed in these programs. And Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was my favourite. I loved every character. I don't think there was one character I liked more than the other, but Aunt Viv, the original Aunt Viv, I remember seeing her, and there was that ballet scene, and I was in awe of her. I was like, not only is she beautifully talented, she's beautifully created. And I felt at home watching it, like I could be part of that family. If that makes sense, I was like, I want to be part of that family. Because it's almost like the high life of living Bel-Air life, which is usually shown as being attainable only by white people, and now you're seeing black people living in that. And here I was, young girl from Tottenham, watching this program. It was amazing, and I loved it. But when the original Aunt Viv was replaced, it happened so swiftly, like the speed of light. And I just remember thinking, like, what's happened here? And then I thought it was only for 1 or 2 episodes. And then I realised, actually, for the foreseeable, we've got the new Aunt Viv. And the new Aunt Viv, the actress that played her, beautiful, stunning. But I always did wonder what happened to the original Aunt Viv. So, obviously, to my surprise, when I switched on the TV, and I say the TV, my laptop, and everyone was like, I was on Twitter and it was trending about Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I thought, okay, you know what? Let me watch the reunion. So the original Aunt Viv was played by a woman called Ms Janet Hubert. Beautiful woman. And as part of the reunion, they actually brought her back. And it was just, to start with, it was a scene with her and Will Smith. And apparently they hadn't seen each other in 27 years, I believe. And this was an opportunity for them to kind of air out kind of issues they had. And I didn't even know they had issues. So they explained it from their perspective. And the original Aunt Viv, Ms Janet Hubert, spoke her truth in the most honest way. And she said to Will, she says, I was going through so much in my life. And when I came to work, I stopped speaking to people because I didn't know who I could trust. And, she shared with us some of the issues she had with the network, where they were basically undervaluing her and basically trying to shortchange her, basically. But the most important thing for me, when she was talking, she says, Will, you were the star. We all knew that you were the star. And I had a lot going on in my life. And I left the network, I left the show, for whatever reason. But then you went on to bash me. And obviously I responded, in which she did apologise for, the things that she said about him or whatever. And she said, however, you basically told the press and told everybody that would listen that I was difficult to work with. And basically that was the kiss of death of my 30-year career. It was the kiss of death. Because once you say a black woman is difficult to work with, you basically tell Hollywood to stay away. And that's exactly what happened. So after Will had said what he had said, her career was as much as over. I never saw her in anything after the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And as she was talking, and she said, you know, and I'm not just a black woman, I'm a dark-skinned black woman. Like, you saying that I was difficult, was like the kiss of death. And I felt it in my soul and in my spirit. I felt it. And I got so much honesty from her. And I don't really feel like I got that from Will. I didn't get that from Will Smith because I don't feel like he really, or maybe he did it off camera, but I would have appreciated if he did it on camera and was just very authentic and honest about the things he actually said, because he never said, yes, I did say that. He didn't. He just was like, you know, listening to her and nodding and then apologizing. But I needed to hear him say that he said that and fully take responsibility, not by telling us, oh, he's got children, you know, and now he realizes, like, that's all bullshit. And I get it, you know, he was young when he said what he said, but he still knew the influence and the impact of saying what he did say. Of course he did, otherwise he wouldn't have said it. And it came from a negative place. It could only ever come from a negative place. And when I was thinking about her, you know, her comparison to the kiss of death, I was thinking about labels and how, as black women in the world of work, especially, you know, because obviously that's what we talk about here, how we are labelled things and mud sticks. And once you're labelled something, it is like the kiss of death. You know, I remember when I started my career, and when I say started my career, I mean, you know, in different organisations whereby I'd gone in very entry level. And I remember a particular place that I had worked, and I was really, like, I was finding myself, right? I didn't know who I was in terms of my identity. I was just happy to have a job. I was grateful. It's that subservient mentality that's passed down from our parents, labelled on my head as I'm so grateful to have a job. And anytime the manager said something, I'd shake. You know, anytime I couldn't do anything, you know that thing. You know what I'm talking about, innit? When you're not aware of what you're entitled to, and you're just grateful to be in the midst of white people in organisations that you're probably told that you'll never be in. And I was so subservient. And I just remember, you know, I used to really bend a lot. And I say bend, and I mean, I used to take a lot of shit. Yeah, I did. When I was younger, 100% I used to. Because I had bills to pay, and I thought, you know what? If I kiss enough ass, you know, they're going to like me. And I think for a long time, especially in my younger years, more so in my younger years, because now I don't give a fuck, but also in my younger years, I just wanted to be liked. And in being liked, I wanted to be accepted. And I remember this organisation I worked in, and, you know, I just remember a team meeting, and there was a couple of colleagues in that team meeting. And ordinarily in team meetings, when I was younger, I never really used to talk unless I was asked to. And I think we were going around giving updates about what we're working on or something. And that's kind of part of those team meetings back then. And there was a question, after we'd done that, there was a question asked by the person chairing the meeting internally. And I put up my hand, and the person chairing the meeting, we're going to call him Mike. He said, yes, trouble. And I froze, because I thought, he can't be talking to me, because my name's Toya. Like, why would you call me trouble? Like, I've only been here for 3 weeks. I barely talk. And when I do talk, it's when I'm spoken to. Right. And I remember what my role was. And I was working in admin, but I was supporting a lot of like the internal stakeholders. I was supporting them with like diary management and stuff like that. And when he said, oh, yes, trouble, and then I realised it was me he was talking to, I started giggling nervously, and I answered the question. And from then on in, that was my nickname, Trouble. And I used to believe that if they call me Trouble, at least they know who I am. That used to be my mentality. So am I saying that I am the label they've given me? So my name is now Trouble. Ah, God. And that was my name. Everyone used to go, hi, Trouble, can you help me with book a meeting room? Hey, Trouble, do you mind checking my diary if I've got any clashes on a particular day? And then that slowly snowballed into, oh, Toya, do you mind popping to Starbucks and getting me a coffee? Toya, do you mind going to Pret and picking me up a BLT sandwich? Yeah. Because once you are labelled, everybody calls you that. It's like being blacklisted, isn't it? It's like that, isn't it? And then people then overstep boundaries, and before you know it, your credibility is completely undermined, and nothing you say or do will ever deviate from the stereotype that has been associated with whatever name that these people have labelled you. And one thing that I've come to realise is, for some reason, and I think it's their ancestors, racist white people, prejudiced white people, they are obsessed with labelling. And I genuinely believe it's because during the slave trade, they used to brand their slaves. And that would basically tell people who owned the slave. And I think a lot of these white people, they still have that element of racism, and they still remember slavery like it happened yesterday. So when they go in the workplace, listen to me here, when they go in the workplace, ownership, labelling is very intrinsic in how they interact with people and manage people. It's very intrinsic, because there's no difference between, when you label me, you're branding me. That's what you're doing. You're branding me. But you're not branding the other white people. No. It's the black person. I was called Trouble, and there's another girl that they called her 5'9" because her feet were big. So they called her 5'9". Before long, it was me and her tag teaming to go and get teas, coffees and everything. I was absolutely humiliated because that was not my role and that wasn't part of my job description. But because I was so desperate to be liked and accepted, I took the label thinking, well, if I take this label, they're going to accept me. At least they know who I am. This will help me move up. Move where? I've already made myself the tea girl. I've gone from admin to tea girl. Tea girl, a role I didn't apply for. On top of it, you will go and get them tea and coffee. They'll say, oh, sorry, there's too much sugar. And then if something's wrong with the tea or coffee, I will have to go back and get it again and use my own money to replace it. Oh, I was really humiliated, And I remember thinking to myself, especially when I was watching the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reunion, when she was talking about the kiss of death, it is the kiss of death in the world of work when you're labelled something. And I think white people think it's funny. That's their type of joke. My dad always used to say, if somebody is telling a joke at the expense of somebody, and the person that the joke is at the expense of is not laughing, that's not a joke. That becomes an insult. And it's the gospel truth. But for some reason, and when I talk about white people, I'm talking about racist white people that are systemic in workplaces, especially workplaces that have been built to support and encourage the progress of white people, that seek to protect racism. These type of workplaces, they like to label black people. They do. How can you call a senior admin assistant 5'9"? And they think it's funny. And we used to be checking, oh, if we say anything, oh, we're going to lose our jobs. Do you know why I had to leave there? Because I couldn't take it no more, I literally felt like the house girl. Again, it reminded me of, the slave trade, where they would allow, for them, they will have people in the cotton farm, and then they'll have people in the house helping them look after their children and feed the family. I felt like that in the workplace. And it's so demoralizing. It's so humiliating. Especially when you would come back in the office after getting their teas and coffees. Maybe you've made a mistake in your work, and they will just shout and scream and humiliate you in the middle of the office. They'll try their tea or their coffee and say, sorry, Toya, I ordered a latte. This is a cappuccino, in the middle of the office. And obviously everybody is spectating and they're learning. But the kiss of death for me was when in that meeting, he called me Trouble. That was the kiss of death. That, for me, when I look back, because I didn't pull him up on it, because I didn't address it, I could have turned around and said to him, sorry, my name's not Trouble, it's Toya. I could see how you could make that mistake because it's T, Trouble and Toya, but my name's Toya. Or I could have said, I'm not sure why you would call me Trouble, but yeah, my name's Toya. Can we not do that? I could have said that. I could have said something. But my response was to laugh and basically telling them it's okay. And then the disrespect that followed was, oh, it's just a joke. Or I remember there was this one time, oh God, when I think about this fucking triggers me. So I had gone to get the regular tea and coffee, and then I'd handed it out and I'd come to sit back on my seat. And as I came to sit back on my seat, they pulled the chair. You know, one of those chairs on the wheels, they pulled the chair. And I was literally about to sit down. I would have bashed my head, and one of them caught me from behind. Not only was it so inappropriate in terms of even fucking touching me, but they thought that that was a joke, that I could drop and bang my head and be unconscious, but it was a joke. And what did I do? I just was all embarrassed and flustered, and I just went to the toilet and I bawled my eyes out. I bawled my eyes out. And when I look back now, I think to myself, when I was younger, when I was unaware, when I had no clue of how to navigate the world of work, my demise or the downward spiral of a workplace always started with a kiss of death. It always did. Until I found the courage to use my voice, until I realized, actually, Toya, this is a jungle, and if you're not going to speak up, these people are going to tramp all over you. Until I took the time to understand the dynamics of a workplace and how to navigate it, I didn't have a podcast. There was no such thing as a platform that would support, aid, and advise women how to navigate the world of work. I didn't have that. My parents are first generation immigrants, okay? They left their home to come here to the UK for a better life. That better life consisted of giving me and my brothers what they could, and ensuring that we had an education, and ensuring that even though things were hard, that it would be for the greater good for our lives. So my parents are from that generation. You should be grateful to have a job. And they told me I should be grateful to have a job. So that gratitude came with subservience. And that subservience comes with the word servant. I was like I was a servant for white people. So nothing really had changed from a generational perspective until I have to, sometimes I sit there and I was like, what was the switch? What was the switch, Toya, that you realize you can't fucking do this? This is bullshit. And I think it was where I was working as a PA for a particular organization very early on in my career, trying to figure out kind of what I wanted to do. I didn't even know what a contract manager was. And I believe this job was in between my degree and law school, because there was a few years in between before I actually went to law school. And I was a PA for these two women, Australian women. Oh, anyway, don't even get me fucking started. Anyway, and basically they're really rich. You can tell they came from rich families, and it was a startup company, startup mentality, and I was a PA for both of them. And I shared an office with them, and I felt like, oh my God, like I'm rubbing shoulders with them, so their intelligence will pass on to me, because I never for once considered myself to be intelligent. Long story short, there was two of them, so we're going to call one of them Alison and Amy. And Alison I really liked. I don't know why, I just really liked her. Like, what you see is what you get. She was very scatty, so it was easy to be her PA. Amy, unfortunately, she thought she was just better than everybody. She made a point of informing me that her driver is black. Oh yeah. She had great news that day. Toya, oh my God, have I not told you? Conroy. I think his name's Conroy. I think his name was Conroy. Conroy, you know my driver that drops me off every day and picks me up? Yeah, he's black. Yeah, lovely guy. And I just remember looking at her thinking, okay. But I would giggle along and I'd laugh along and I'd be like, oh my God, he must be so nice. Where's he from? Da, da, da. I didn't give a fuck. But I felt like if I took interest, clearly she can see that I'm black, maybe she might like me. Then one day she came into the office with her daughter. Her daughter was, I'll say about 6 months old. She said, Toya, my nanny's called in sick and I've got no one to take care of my child. Would you mind keeping an eye on her in between meetings, in between my meetings? And guys, yeah, I was her nanny. And that was my kiss of death, because we had these offices that had clear screens so everybody could see. And I had to pick her up. I had to entertain her as well as do my day job and be a PA to Alison as well. And I remember the one time when the little girl pooed and I had to change her nappy. And this was in the full gaze of the office, looking into our office, seeing me do this. So I had become her black nanny to match her black driver. Yeah. And then you know what happened, isn't it? The onslaught of disrespect from the rest of the team. He would constantly mock me. And they would call me nanny daycare. They would call me, sometimes they just call me nanny, and I'd laugh and think, oh, okay, well, at least they like me, or at least they notice me and recognize me. And then I just had enough. Yeah, I'd been there for a few months now. I was like, this is the best it's going to get. And I had done a lot in terms of being a PA in this role. I'd made a couple of mistakes, but believe me, between juggling being a PA and babysitting Amy's child, I did make a couple of mistakes, especially like calendar clashes and things like that. Do you know that when I came to resign, Alison was away on business, and I'd let her know, and she was very disappointed, but she was very supportive of my decision to leave. And I had said to her, please don't tell Amy, I'll tell her myself, I want it to come from me. And Alison was like, no problem. So when Amy had come into the office, I booked some time in her diary. Thank God she didn't bring her daughter in. And I told her I was resigning. And she stood up in my face, and she stood up, I was sitting down, and she goes, you are so ungrateful. We are so nice to you. And this is how you repay us, by just leaving us in the lurch? I mean, how are we going to replace you? I mean, how long is your notice period? This is disgusting. And she said, this is fucking ridiculous. And she opened the door and she stormed out and went back into the office because it was in a meeting room. I will never forget this day. And do you know what, guys? When I was younger, I had no behaviour. I need to let you know. I didn't understand work etiquette to that level, i.e. don't kind of be drawn into that kind of hostile. Nah, do you know what I did? I went into the office. I picked myself up. I left the meeting room, went into the office that I shared with her. And I said to her, Amy, I don't give a damn what you're upset about, but don't you ever talk to me like that again. Don't you ever talk to me like that again. I am not the dirt on the back of your shoe. Don't shout at me. I have been nothing but nice to you. I've looked after your daughter. I've changed your daughter's dirty nappies, not once, not twice, on several occasions. I've played babysitter. I've been up at all hours making sure that your diary is up to date. I've applied for visas. I've done things outside of my job description just to make sure I'm doing a good job and have you like me. And because I want to leave, you've decided to take it badly, but to the point where you're screaming and shouting at me. And now you stormed out. Everybody knows something's happened. It's embarrassing. And I said, you know what? Just because you've done that, I'm not going to work my notice and there's nothing you can do about it. And you have to pay me, otherwise I'll sue you. Oh, I really, really lost it with her. Do you know she packed her stuff and she walked out, and I'm sure she went home. And I worked my notice 1 week. And my notice period was 4 weeks. I worked 1 week. They will have to pay me. I didn't give a fuck. And I left. And I think that was the turning point for me. It was a turning point where I realised that in accepting the labels people gave me, I was accepting the treatment that would come after that as well. I also learned from that was not the best way to handle it. And in order to avoid situations like that, you have to nip things in the bud pretty early on. And that people will only give you the labels you accept. That's what I learned. And it was a turning point because even though I was, a PA, which I felt like, to be honest, I could have taken on a more challenging role. But for me, I just wanted to earn money. I didn't care. Like, I have been in retail. I've cleaned toilets, as I've discussed with you guys before. I've worked in Tesco's. I've worked in Sainsbury's. So I'm not work shy. I just needed a job. And when I finished my law degree, I didn't know really what I wanted to do. Law school wasn't even a consideration because I couldn't afford it. So it wasn't something I thought about at that point. It was only as things developed and I realised, okay, I have to go to law school. My dad insisted that I should consider going into law school. I even thought about it. I just kind of thought that I would just get a training contract somehow. But until that time happened, I just have to work anywhere. You know, it wasn't until later when I realised I don't even want a fucking training contract. And then when I got one, I was like, actually, this is not for me. But that came later on. You know, after my law degree, I was lost. Because you see, family, your immediate family, they'll tell, go and do a degree, you're gonna be this, you're gonna be that. Then when you go through the degree, you realise, everybody thinks they're gonna be. But not everybody is going to be. And I left my degree more confused than when I went in. Because it was like they dropped me from a great height. I was like, okay, what the fuck am I supposed to do now? I've got a law degree. I'm definitely not a lawyer right now. Definitely poor. do you know what I mean? And that, I think, to me, that may have been the turning point, you know, because I was so humiliated. I even remember there was one time, I had cleaned the child's nappy and everything, whatever, and I washed my hands or whatever, but I think I had gotten poo or maybe my tights or something. When I went on the train, I got on the Victoria line to go home. The way the train was smelling of shit, and for the life of me, I couldn't understand why. And when I got home, it was still smelling of shit. When I took my tights off, I saw the little dry stain of child poo on my tights. I realised, do you know what? That level of humiliation, where you go to work as a PA, come home as a nanny. Thank God. A nanny that I didn't apply for. There's nothing wrong with being a nanny, but that's not the job I applied for. I applied for a PA. If I want to be a nanny, that's the job I will go for. But this woman took undue advantage of me. That's what she did. She took undue advantage. And I allowed her to further take advantage by labelling me. As soon as she labelled me, I was getting her tea and coffee. Sometimes I would go to Sainsbury's and get her dinner for what she's going to cook for her husband that night. I would go and get it. I became a complete errand girl. Sorry, that's not PA. That PA was not what the job description entailed. It didn't say any of the other stuff. But once I had accepted the label that she gave me, it was like the kiss of death. So then, after that kiss of death came bullshit. The reason why I was very triggered watching Janet Hubert on the reunion of Fresh Prince was because hearing her story triggered certain memories, and I've shared a couple of them with you here. But more importantly, how damaging labels are. Damaging to your reputation, damaging from perception, and people of influence who have the opportunity to change certain things in your life. When they hear that stereotype, especially from somebody influential, and you do not nip it in the bud, and you allow it to snowball, it can literally change the course of your life in the direction of certain things. And I always say to people, you don't have to be the loudest in the room. You do not have to be the loudest in the room. You just have to have a voice. And occasionally learn how to use it. Now I look back at my life and I think to myself, I could never be the Toya I was back then, you know. It's just not me. It's just not me. If those women could find out where I am now in my life, I think they'd be fucking shocked. I think they really would. Like, sometimes I can't believe the trajectory that my life has taken. And now I own my own businesses. Like, I mean, come on. So I would encourage each and every one of you to watch the reunion of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and really pay attention to that interview with the original Aunt Viv, Janet Hubert, beautiful black queen, standing in her truth and honesty, accepting her faults and her errors, but more importantly, sharing her truth so that we can learn, so that we can understand, and so that we can educate ourselves. So it was a blessing to be able to watch her speak her truth and watch her on the reunion, a reunion that she deserved to attend. Wow, that was a lot. I just didn't realize how triggered I would be watching that, and I'm so glad that I get to share my experience with you, and I get to educate you on some of the learning lessons from things that I've went through in my working life as I navigated to get to where I am, but more importantly, the things I learned that have made me who I am. So let's leave that there. Listen, guys, girls, do you remember episode 34, season 2, Scramble for Power? That is, after this episode, it'll be 3 episodes ago. Do you remember I was telling you guys about David? And I'm going to do a very, very quick recap for those of you who haven't listened to Scramble for Power or have forgotten. So basically, David works where I work. He's been there a week longer than I, and he has self-appointed himself senior contract consultant. Even though it's a flat structure, no one's senior. We're all on the same level. And basically, he'd been doing certain things at work that basically stepped on my toes in terms of the stuff that I'm managing and the workload that I do. And I'm one of these people, I just ignored his behaviour up until the point whereby he's stepping on my toes and affecting my work and productivity. In which case, how I responded, and I do go into a lot more detail in the episode Scramble for Power, that's episode 34, season 2. And I sent him an email, copied into my director. Very professional email, straight to the point, but professional. Just letting him know that if you're going to have certain conversations, can you please include me? Because I'm actually managing XYZ, and therefore I need to be able to be party to these conversations that are affecting my contract. He then decided to give me a call on Skype. Unfortunately, I had a call 2 minutes later, so I could only stay on the call for 2 minutes, in which he tried to lambast me for the email that I'd sent. And I basically did not engage. And I said to him, the email's what it is. I've said what I said. Unfortunately, if you're not happy with it, that's up to you. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm well within my rights to tell you that if you're going to do something in relation to my contracts that affects the contracts I'm managing, then I would like to be a party of those conversations. He then tried to tell me we need to have an extensive discussion. And I was like, no. He goes, he wants to put some time in my diary. I was like, no, this is a non-issue. I don't actually have the time to discuss with you an email that is very clear, basically. Long story short, he went to my director. Little did he know, I'd already spoken to my director because he was really affecting my work at this point. But I had a really informal chat with my director before, anything. And before I sent an email anyway. She wasn't aware the email would be sent, whatever. And basically, when he had gone and told her, he basically told her I launched into him. I launched on him. And she decided to come and tell me that. Now, at the time, I was like, why would she even tell me that? I've had this discussion, it's a non-issue. And long story short, I said to her, I don't see how somebody can launch on someone when the camera's off, and I was on the call for less than two minutes because I had a call straight afterwards. And in fact, if he thinks I launched, I'd like to understand what it was that was launching, because in my mind, I'm thinking I'm not a fucking rocket. How have I launched? Anyway, nipped it in the bud. And David has been running amok because I've done my due diligence on David. I knew that David would be his own demise. How can you piss everybody off in a team? The exact same thing I asked you very professionally, very nicely to not do. You've been doing to other people, but rather than other people address it, they've been speaking to each other, and then it's got back to my director. I'm the only person that actually put it on Front Street in an email, basically. Done it in such a professional way. This guy is the epitome of white privilege. I'm telling you right now, the only reason why he went to my director to say I launched into him is because of his white fragility and his ego. And I said this to you guys before. I think that he underestimated me, and he was shocked because up until that point I'd hardly spoken, and suddenly there's an email. And this email isn't like an email with him, it's with my director. Because for me, it's like, well, I don't see any problem with what I said. And I think it was important that for my director to understand that if I'm not delivering certain things, well, the reason I'm not is because David is being a dickhead David, basically. He has a real lack of self-awareness, okay? So he would get on calls, internal calls, external calls, whatever, and he'd just chat shit. And I said to you guys before in the other episode, he just used words I've never heard of in my fucking life that contextually, it had no right, those big words in the conversation. But last week, everybody in my team, one thing is, when you're doing your due diligence, you've got to read the room, read people, take the time to understand who you're working with. None of us in the team, we're not morning people, yeah? So if you're going to put a meeting in a diary for 9 a.m, it needs to be not only urgent, but if you're involving my director, honey, you better understand that meeting that you're putting in at 9, must be like bottleneck issue. Like, do you understand? When he put that call in, I decided that the role I'm going to play is just to be quiet because there was about 3 of us on the call. And I said to myself, let me just observe. Do you know my director? Literally, she finished him on this call. He was so humiliated, he switched his camera off because before then he was so close, turning into a tomato, red with embarrassment. Because he was talking like he knows. This man has never read the contract, so he's never read contract. Then he's coming to tell you, da 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 da. I could have finished him, yeah, in that conversation because he tried to say something, contracts, da 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 da. I was like, that's not the answer, that's a lie. But I thought, do you know what? I don't need to do that. Because I reported this dickhead to God. He knew what he was doing when he went to my director, who is my boss actually, to say I launched into him. Do you know how provocative the word launching is? Basically, I attacked him. I was aggressive. All those stereotypes. His attempt at basically seeking to tarnish not only my reputation, but seeking to force a view on my personality is a microaggression. It's microaggressive now when you say, oh, she launched into me. It's microaggression. So in my head, I was like, okay, you know what? I've reported you to God. God will deal with you. Because God knows my heart. Because even when my boss called me to make sure that I was cool and everything, I said to her, don't worry. I'm fine with working with this guy, but I think it's important that everybody knows where they stand and they know how to do. And she agreed with me. She goes, it's very important. Everybody plays their role, plays their position because collectively we have a collective goal and everybody has their individual deliverables. I said, exactly. So after that 9 a.m. meeting, my boss, I've never seen her like that because usually she's calm as cucumber. This time she was hot as red pepper. Yeah, I said nothing. This guy lacks so much self-awareness. But because he has this self-imposed, inflated ego, do you know the consultants on my team, we're all on the same level. If we collectively tell you where we've worked and what we've delivered, your mouth will drop on the floor. Yes, we all know why we were hired to come here to this organization. We know because we have something special. Do you know he went to one of the consultants and said to one of the consultants, oh, Ashley, would you mind sending me an email and tell me what you're working on and how long things took you to do? Let me tell you, my boss didn't ask him to do this. So nobody asked him, but he decided. I was waiting for him. I was begging to God, let him come and ask me that. I would tell, would I put him in his place? I will not launch on him. I will deep dive. on him. I would have told him, I'm so sorry, that's not going to happen. Do you want to report me? Don't worry. I will send an email to Deborah. I'll let her know what you've asked me. I will just out him. And one thing he doesn't want is me to out him. Whereas Ashley, she's not really that way. Do you understand? And obviously, he believes he knows who he can push around. That's why he went to Ashley. At our level, you're asking us to give you we are sinking with work. You're telling us we should come and tell you what we're working on. What type of elementary school bullshit is that? Well, guys, I say all of this to also add that do you know that David has been doing other things that are microaggressions? And let me give you an example because you may not think that they are, but I'm going to tell you they are. I am leading on my contracts. Everybody has their own contracts. Yeah? Then when he's talking to, say, my stakeholder on the other side, maybe the question is, I'm the one that's best placed to answer it, but he will put me on CC. He will add everybody. Maybe he's sending something to the team. He will add everybody too, and then he'll put me on a CC. It's a microaggression. What he's trying to do is show me that he's above me. Whereas we're on the same team, same level, but he keeps CCing me. He keeps doing it. And there was one time, Ashley took me off CC and put me on too. And I was going to ask her why she did that. But I said to myself, Toya, you don't need to ask her. You know why she did it because she also sees that microaggression. And Ashley is Oyibo. So I thought, you know what? I'm not going to say anything because at the end of the day, if I mention something now, unless the person understands micro and macroaggression, For them, they would just say I'm being petty. No problem. After all, it's not doing me anything. It's just something I've noticed. But every time he does it, I put it in the burn folder. Because my burn folder, it was getting even full. Yeah, because the day he would have crossed the line that is uncrossable, I would have dealt with him. Because he's done so much shit in that burn folder. God. But I said to myself, God, I'm still pissed that this man can go to the director to say I launched on him. That is a fucking fat lie, as fat as his belly. I said, God, you know that when your children come to work, you know that as black women, we suffer. So God, what I'm asking you is, remove the suffering. Just remove it. Because this one, he used hand to slap me. He tried a thing. And what I've decided to do is report it because, God, you said vengeance is yours. And I'm not putting a time limit, but I'm just letting you know, any time from now will be great for you to show up, God. Yes. David was attempting to make me feel invisible. And I'm going to admit something to you guys. I did. Because I'm still relatively new. I'm still finding my feet. So for me, in finding my feet and just deciding to take a more gentler step in being a bit more, I'm really doing my due diligence. So I'm really taking a step back and just observing things. And, I'm doing my work. I'm doing certain things, but I don't need to be, I'm not putting myself on Front Street. But whenever he puts me on CC, deliberately, where all the rest of my team are on the 2 and I'm CC, it makes me feel like I'm not part of the team. And I was starting to feel invisible. I was, because certain things were happening and I wasn't included in emails, and then I'll find out by accident by somebody. It wasn't a nice position to be in, but I said to myself, do you know what? At the end of the day, there will be a crossroads. Something will come to pass, because it can't go on like this. But what will go on is me, in terms of knowing that I've got this. Do you understand? Because I'm not new to this. I'm not. Somebody like this is going to make a grave mistake. You see that David will make a grave mistake, and that will be his downfall. Well, guys, I have something to tell you guys. Let me give you some piping hot tea. David, his contract was terminated effective on Friday. Yeah, you heard me. Hello. Let me repeat it. David's contract was terminated effectively Friday. Yes. With immediate effect. God said vengeance is his, Abby. God, you arrived though. He took him out. How do I know? My director called me today. Because I had to escalate something to her. It was an advisory escalation. I need their advice. So she sent me an email. She said, Toya, thank you so much for escalating this to me. This is my position and I support your way forward. She says, Toya, before you do anything, please, can you call me? I said, madam, you've already given me your advisory. But I thought, okay, let me call her. I called her. She said, Toya, how are you doing? Out of everybody in the team, you're one of the quieter members of the team. But all this work that you've been doing, I saw that you delivered. She goes, oh, you're definitely one to watch. She goes, when it comes to dealing with this contract, you really are dealing with it properly. I'm so happy. She was just talking shop. I said, okay, Auntie, what else? In my mind. She said, I just want to let you know that David is no longer with us. So I said, oh, he's moved teams? She says, no. He's completely out of the business effectively Friday with immediate effect. I said, okay. She said, I want to tell you something, Toya. I said, yes. She said, you were so professional in the way you managed David. Your email that you sent was absolutely fantastic, and I agree with everything. When I called you to tell you that he said that you launched on him, I did it because I wanted you to know that this is something that he said. But you refused to budge. In fact, when I told you that, what you said to me is, well, that's how he feels. He needs to manage his emotions. And as far as you're concerned, you will continue to work with him the best way you can. She said, everybody else in the team found it very difficult to approach me about his behavior. However, there was a few bus stops last week between him and members of staff, and they were all saying exactly the things that you were saying. So I knew that he's the problem. But she says that The icing on the cake was that 9 a.m. call. She said, oh, she went on. What? She was angry. Oh. She just offloaded herself. When she finished offloading, she said, I just want to let you know that we have a flat structure here. And there will be some seniors of people who have been here longer. But you will not be reporting to anybody. You will be reporting to me because I can see that not only are you managing these contracts properly, that as a contract consultant, you are very experienced in this area. So don't you worry. Anything that's announced doesn't apply to you. And she put it in writing. Yes! Hey! Michael Jordan will call it a slam dunk. Don't mess with God's children. When God's children come with clean hands and clean heart, don't you dare mess with God's children. Would David have believed that? No, when you went and lied, said I launched into you, you knew what you were saying. You knew what you were trying to do. You knew how you were trying to label me. You tried to ensure that was a kiss of death. God forbid, back to sender. Oh, Kwensu, devil. No, it went back to him. Look at it now. You don't have contract. And it wasn't at my hand. Not knowing that he was already having bust-ups with the team. That you think that rest of the team have time to send email. No, they humiliated him there. Maybe it was in front of somebody and they went to go and tell my director. Yes, because he was lighting fires everywhere. And me, I'm minding my business. You were trying to do bullshit. I know how to manage people like that. I know how to manage. Listen, there's no item of microaggression you can direct towards me that will cause me to lose my temper. It's never going to happen in a white man's industry. God forbid bad thing. No, I know how to deal. I knew that either he's going to be marched out or he will do something so disrespectful that I will have to take him on with my burn folder. I knew it's going to be one or the other. Because this man is so disrespectful. You'll be talking about your contract with a stakeholder. He will interrupt you and just talk shit. And then obviously he would now behave like he's in an old boys club and we'll start talking about Everton football team or is it Man U City. And obviously now he will then try and find something that is relatable with the person he's talking to exclude me, innit? Okay, who's excluded now? Excluded and removed from the building. Bastard. But when I was thinking about what can I learn from that situation, you know, as Black women, we are innately self-aware. It's instilled in us to be self-aware and second guess ourselves. You know, oh, is it just me? No, this isn't a microaggression. This is in my head. It's almost like we are raised to be that way. Yeah? We are raised to be self-aware of ourselves and how we come across because of the stereotypes that are labeled and plastered all over us. So we are navigating workplace in a different way to our white counterparts and to our non-Black counterparts. We're navigating differently. But I've always said that part of that is our superpower because we see things happening down the line or we feel things happening. Whereas white people, especially white men who are privileged, they're so privileged that they don't even believe that self-awareness is something that they have to even consider because the world is theirs. That's what they're taught. We are talking about relatives of slave owners here. So for them, they've been raised to think that they own everything is theirs. They don't have that awareness. And one thing I'm going to say is the pandemic, because of the remote working caused by the pandemic, it accelerated David's demise because it's not like he can go in and have a bit of a chit chat in the kitchen. Do you understand? It's not like he can break 1-2 joke in a lift. We're all remotely walking. So there's almost like a big magnifying glass on you as a person and what you can deliver. You can't blag it. You have to deliver. Like there needs to be something tangible at the end. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? You can't hide behind big words and throw your weight around. No, we're remote working, so you're having to really rely on your skills, your interpersonal skills, and you're hyper visible when you're remote working. You are hyper visible, especially because people are using every little thing to try and build a story of who you are. And it could be your background when you're remote working and what people can see. So he'd already built up a reputation in less than 4 weeks, and a very negative one across the board. Everybody was saying the same thing about this guy. And the worst part of it is, we are now starting to uncover all this bullshit that he's been doing. And who is mopping it up? It's the consultants like myself. We are all mopping. Yes, my dear. People like David lack the self-awareness. They're the type of people that they'll be in a club and maybe Jay-Z or Kanye comes up and then there's a lyric that has the N-word and they say it. They don't understand when they can't say it. They don't have that level of self-awareness to understand. People like David are raised with privilege and entitlement, and they carry that to the workplace. And when David received that email, I'm telling you gospel truth. You know why he was so incensed with anger? How dare this black N-word think, this woman, this bitch, thinks she can send something like this? I'm gonna show her. He called me. He acted in emotion. And in that emotion, I didn't even give him audience. He got less than 2 minutes. And that enraged him. To the extent that he now picked up the phone to the same director who's already on copy of that email to come and report that I launched. I asked her, when did the launching happen? Because the camera was off and I was on the call for less than 2 minutes. I had another call. I didn't have time for launching. But he wanted to create a narrative about me because I dare challenge. I have to challenge. If your stupidity and your madness affects my work, that means you are a threat to my tenure. You're a threat to my contract. At the end of the day, I'm a contractor. I'm also running a business. I have my own limited company that I'm working for. I am a business. So you are a threat to my income because your stupidity is now affecting the way I deliver my work. Sorry. If you want to go and act mad to everybody else, I will just look at you. But the day you think you can step on my feet because you think I'm just any stupid girl, because I'm not saying anything, I'm just watching you, I will teach you a lesson. If I don't report you to God, my grandfather will report you to HR. Are you mad? Don't move mad with me. You've got to read the room. I mean, I get it. Maybe you don't know these people you're working with, whatever. But listen to how they're talking, the tone of conversation, how people are receiving people. You've got to have the self-awareness to understand that there are different dynamics in different organizations and different teams and sub-teams. You've got to understand then how to place yourself. He really saw himself as my opponent. He was never my opponent. I don't care enough. But he was so enraged. And this is why I always say, don't write things with emotion. When you're angry or upset, just walk away. Because when he called my boss to say I launched at him, I think that pissed her off. That's why she told me, because she wanted to see how I react. And because I didn't react, she couldn't do anything. But it would never be at my own hands. I'm not reacting to that. That's some bullshit, some petty shit. That's some childhood. I ain't got time for that. I knew that if this guy is doing this to me, what can he be doing to other people? Because ultimately, all he wants is seniority by fire by force. And it is a coup. It was a scramble for power. He actually wants my director's job. That's what he wants. So he's not seeing anything. He's just focusing on, I'm going to bulldoze my way there. No strategy, no nothing. Now he's strategizing outside. In a pandemic now, he's left a very good contract to he's outside at his own hand. He has no one to blame but himself. The little pity I felt for him was, this is pandemic, sure. But he wasn't moving like he knew it was a pandemic. He was moving like he was owner of the vineyard, king and executor. Yeah, you're out there now. Figure it out, bastard. You know when I first mentioned David in the episode Scramble for Power, a young lady, she sent me a message and she said, what did you think that David's intention was when he went to your director to tell your director that you launched at him? I said, his sole intention was to discredit me and have me look like not only am I an aggressor, I'm an angry black woman. All the stereotypes that white people have about black people, he sought to further push that narrative. And if he got my director on side, he would have found a way to push me out or make my life very uncomfortable. But my director hasn't got time. She's not stupid. She knows who makes her look good. Do you understand? She knows who's getting on with the job. And more importantly, These people negotiated for me. What do you mean? Before I took these contracts, they negotiated with me until I got the rate I wanted. Yes, they did. So for her, she's like, you know, and she wasn't even involved in my interview. She wasn't. But she heard about me. And you know the things that she heard about me? Because she told me that she said that the hiring person in human resources, they were all saying to her, you're very lucky to have Toya. These are her credentials. And also she's very, very polite. Very polite. Because I was always on my P's and Q's. What do you mean? Even when they were asking me, can you send your passport? Can you send this? I'll always thank them. When they ask me for something and they've done something, I say, oh, thank you so much for your time. Yes, that's me. Because I know that impressions count. And the way I have control over those impressions is by the interactions I'm having with people. And it's not necessarily the people I'm working with. Maybe it's somebody in human resources that is maybe processing my documentation. Yes, I will always call them. Oh, I just want to say thank you. I sent them an email once everything was concluded and I got my contract signed. I sent that particular lady an email. So I'd like to thank you very much for the way you've handled my onboarding. Thank you so much for making sure that XYZ was done. Thank you for... Yes, that's me. So I didn't realize that human resources had already told this director. So already they started to formulate opinion about me. And when now David sought to undermine that, she must have thought, no, that doesn't coincide with the Toya that I've seen here. It coincides with David, your madness. And true to form, it's by his own hand and his own sword he fell. You know, sometimes I always tell people, while you're collecting your burn folder, just allow people to be wrapping themselves in knots. Yeah, allow them. Then once they've wrapped themselves in knots, if they're still doing bullshit and then there is now a final straw that breaks the camel's back, you now use your burn folder and go and utilize complex procedure. People are mad. I just want a quiet life. Do you know that this is the first day now since David has been removed? Do you know there's peace reigning everywhere? There is peace all over the shop. The team we're even happier. And they haven't even announced that, you know, the announcement is tomorrow. That's when Deborah is gonna announce that. And me, I have to pretend to act shocked in it because I have to put my video on. You know, when we do team meeting, the video has to be on. Yeah. Yes, my dear. So I thought I'd give you guys feedback and updates. I knew it. I was like, David ain't gonna last here. You can't. There's certain organizations you can't. I'm from Goldman Sachs. Do you know what Goldman Sachs is? You think the director have time for you to come in to say fire launched? They will look you from your bottom of your leg all the way to the crown of your head. They'll be like, are you fucking mad? Just move from me. Got too much work, man. Yeah. Jesus. Anyway, my dear, I thought let me just give you guys updates and let you know what happened. But more importantly, it was important for me to tell you about David because he did it all wrong. Bulldozer, bull in a china shop. How can you be introducing yourself as I am a senior contract consultant? What you're basically saying is all the rest of us are juniors, we're underneath you. That's how he used to introduce himself. Sometimes he would say he's a senior, senior contract consultant. Sometimes he's senior commercial contract consultant. Sometimes he's the number 2 of the department. That means my director is number 1. So us lot are number 3, 4, 5, and 6, Abby. It's like he just, whatever it was that he had, it was a chip on his shoulder, but he wanted us to know that, especially me and a couple of other of the black people on the team, that we are still underneath him. Yeah? Well, God is on top. And God say, you gotta go, bastard. I'm not joking there. I just kind of, oh God. The dynamics of a workplace, it is fucking mad. I'm just here to earn my money and fuck off. That's what I'm here to do. But for some reason, Oyibo people, when they see us, it's like they start shaking. They don't want to rest. Yeah, you arrest by force. Stupid. In the last episode of the Toy Talks podcast, I recommended a program for you guys to watch called Industry on BBC iPlayer. I am telling you guys need to watch it. We are now seeing like the development of the characters and everything, and it's basically navigating the world of work for some interns in a financial organization. and basically they're competing to be offered permanent roles, and we now explore their methods and how, you know, they're doing that and how they're navigating. It is a fantastically scripted series. It is fantastic. I do find it quite triggering. I do. It does remind me of like my Goldman Sachs days. It does. I find it very triggering, but it's really important that you guys watch it. And what I'm going to do next week is I'm going to be discussing trauma. And I'm not going to spoil the title of next week's episode, but I'll be looking at trauma and how, as Black women, we work through some of our work trauma, and how our work trauma manifests in other roles, and how sometimes trauma from the home manifests itself in the workplace. I'm going to be discussing that. I'm also going to deep dive into Priti Patel as well. The reason I'm not doing it in this episode is because I haven't finished reading the report, and the report has been emailed to me by a beautiful Black queen who got hold of the report and has forwarded it to me, and I haven't had the opportunity to have a look at it because this weekend I was recording a masterclass. So I will be discussing trauma from the perspective of Black women, as a Black woman myself, and what happened with Priti Patel in terms of her being found to have breached the ministerial code in regards to her behaviour. She's been accused of bullying, and they've basically found that not only was she a bully, but she was God, I don't even know what to say. She was just terrible. And she's been given an official written warning, and she has not been asked to resign from her job despite having broken ministerial code, which would usually result in a resignation. But Boris has just told her to come on TV, do an interview, apologise, and be looking mad as she's apologising. She looks like a tyrant. She looks scary. Like, I don't know if it's a nervous disposition. The way she was laughing and smiling, not laughing, but smiling, like this sinister smile. To be honest, her apology was not only insincere, but it lacked the empathy required from somebody who's being sincere. It made me uncomfortable. But yeah, we're going to talk about that next week because it's more pertinent to the topic next week. And also as well, by then I think we'll be 4 episodes into industry, and it will give me an opportunity to kind of explore some of the themes of industry. So please, if you haven't already watched it, please go ahead and watch Industry on BBC iPlayer. And that is like you lot's homework in preparation for next week's episode. That will be great. Also as well, a beautiful Black queen, as I mentioned earlier, has bought 2 masterclasses and has asked that I give them to 2 beautiful Black women who may not be in a financial position to afford or be able to pay for the masterclasses. She's asked me to gift these 2 masterclasses. So all I'll ask for you to do is just email hello@toytalks.com, and I trust that your conscience will guide you in terms of, I'm not going to sense check whether you are in a financially difficult position. I have to trust that if you've asked to be gifted this, that you are in that situation, or know that that's the situation you're in. I'm not gonna, I was thinking about it and I was like, I don't need to do it as a competition and say and ask you to like jump a hurdle to obtain it. It's a gift, right? And the prerequisite is that, maybe you're not in a financial position to be able to afford the masterclass. So I believe in trusting people's conscience, and people know if they're not in that situation, and if they are. So yes, all you have to do is email hello@toytalks.com and just say to me, Toya, I'd like to be gifted this, and I will gift it to you. I've also had another beautiful Black queen reach out to me today. She DM'd me on Instagram and she said, Toya, I would like to buy a masterclass for you to gift to somebody who maybe is not in a position to be able to afford it. Would you be able to do that? Can you please invoice me for the cost of a masterclass? So in total, that's 3 masterclasses to be gifted. And once they are gifted out, I will reach out to the sponsors of those masterclass vouchers, gift vouchers, and let them know that they have been gifted. So please, if you are interested in any of the masterclasses, and I'm going to tell you now, the masterclasses are top tier. I've got a CV masterclass, and the CV masterclass also covers job applications in the public, private, and third sector, and the charity sector. I give my industry secrets and also templates, CV templates. We have the negotiation masterclass where I teach you how to negotiate and the things to consider in a salary negotiation, whether you're already in the role or whether you are going for a job interview and being offered a role. I also have the mother and daughter masterclass as well. So there are masterclasses, and it leads me to my my third announcement. I think that's my third announcement. Guys and girls and guys, I have recorded the redundancy masterclass, and I know that's a masterclass that you all have been waiting for, and I'm so blessed and grateful to be able to sit here and say to you it's been recorded. It will go live on the Toya Talks website, that is www.toyatalks.com, on the 29th of November 2020, around midday. It will go live on the website. So that will be the redundancy masterclass. And in that masterclass, I give you details and educate you on the world of redundancy, what to expect, the legislation that protects you, how to negotiate a redundancy, and the things to expect in a redundancy process, the consultation, questions to ask, the appeals process in a redundancy. I talk about it all. And I also have some templates. So if you're appealing a redundancy, I have a template. So once you have purchased the redundancy masterclass, you just send me an email, let me know, give me your order number, and I will give you a template. There's 2 templates that I'm offering as part of the redundancy masterclass, free of charge. All the templates I give are free of charge, providing that you have purchased the masterclass. So yeah, I'm really happy and really blessed to be able to do that. And I hope you enjoy the masterclass as much as I have enjoyed recording it. I also need to announce that we're almost at 50 episodes. Yep, we're almost on the 50th episode. And what I would like to do on the 50th episode of the Toya Talks podcast is I would like to answer some of your questions. You get to ask me any question you want. All I ask is that any questions you want to ask me, you email hello@toyatalks.com, and in the subject box, just write 50th episode. And I will read out all your questions. And that episode will be like a Q&A. So you guys get to ask me questions. I'll answer it. Frequently asked questions, I'll answer it on the podcast. Anything you want to ask me, even if it's like more how I've created this podcast, whatever you want to ask me. I would always love it to be work related, obviously, because that's what we do here. We're educating, teaching and motivating Black women how to navigate the world of work, therefore highlighting the path of our own success. So that's what I'd love to talk about. But I'm just going to open the floor and just say, ask me any questions you want. And that's what we're going to do on the 50th episode. And then in December, we're going to have some special episodes. And I won't spoil the surprises. I'll wait for closer or nearer the time. And then we can, chop it up. We're calling December the December special. Because obviously you guys know I want to take a break in December. But it doesn't mean I'm just going to leave you guys. No. Got something really special, got a couple of things special for you in December. So yeah, that's what we're doing. So that's kind of my announcements section. So also as well, we don't have any dilemmas this week, but we're going to resume some dilemmas next week in next week's episode. I would always ask if you have any dilemmas work related and you want advice, you want me to read it out over the podcast and give you some advice, then please email hello@toyatalks.com. Keep it short, brief as possible, straight to the point, with enough detail as possible as well, and in the subject box just write the dilemma like a dilemma title, if you like, and it just kind of makes it easy for me to kind of know which episode I can factor it in, and also it enables me to be able to kind of locate your dilemma in the mailbox. As you imagine, we get a lot of emails in the mailbox. So yeah, guys, I mean, I've really enjoyed this episode. This has been very cathartic. And I love the podcast. I love delivering it to you guys. I love hearing your feedback. And in terms of feedback, if you're listening to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts. It really does help me out. Also as well, I have been charting on Apple Podcasts, which is amazing. I think my highest charting last week was number 29 on Apple Podcasts. And it wasn't even on a particular episode. It was general on the career section. So I'm so excited every time I see that. It's such a blessing. If you know that there's somebody that you believe that will benefit from the Toya Talks podcast, just do your friend a favour. Do the person a favour and send them the link to the Toya Talks podcast. Thank you so much for sharing the podcast with people. Thank you so much for listening. I am I feel beyond blessed to be in a position whereby I can influence and advise black women in the world of work so that they can attain success, because success is achievable for all of us. I guess it's just about knowing that, number one, knowing how to navigate so you can achieve that success, but more importantly is understanding where some of the pitfalls are and some of the hot coals and how to avoid them. And this is why I share my mistakes, as well as my successes. But what's more important is the lessons that we learn from each situation that happens to us, and how we allow that to make us better, and how we move forward in navigating the world of work successfully. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to thank each and every one of you for listening. Thank you so much if you've listened this far. Thank you so much for sharing the podcast. And more importantly, have a great week. God bless you all. And until next week, where we'll meet again here for another episode on Tuesday of the Toy Talks podcast. My name is Toy Washington, and you have been listening to the Toy Talks podcast.